Hello everyone, Vinyl Chef Steve here. Today I'm going to share my family recipe for red chili and pork tamales, homemade from scratch, the old-fashioned way, and definitely some of the best tasting tamales you will ever have. And it starts with a really good homemade red chili sauce that you will combine with your pork once it's roasted. And for that, you will need a 12-ounce bag of this right here. These are Guajillo Chilies. And you'll need a nice blender right here. And I'll have all the ingredients in the description. And I will do very short and quick exposés on the process of doing this. What you're going to want to do is, you'll see right here, I've got a large pot of water filled, and it's already hot. It's been steaming, so prepare that in advance, because we're gonna put these chilies, once they're all seeded, in that hot water, and we're gonna steep them. We're gonna bring it to a boil, and then we're gonna steep them for about 20 minutes just to soften them up and reconstitute them. And then I'll show you how we get them into our blender and get them seasoned and ready for our pork. Hear that? Those are seeds. So you're going to take and cut off the end of the chili. And as you can see, there are seeds inside. So you definitely don't want to be chewing on those in your tamale. So that's why you have to seed all the chilies out, get all the seeds out like that. Stick your finger in there, and you'll notice I'm wearing gloves. And that's because if you do this without gloves, sticking your finger in this chili here, you will be sorry later on. Also, what I like to do is I take the scissors and I cut up the side of the chili to open it up, just to make sure that you can, because the seeds get stuck inside, so you can get your fingers in there and loosen them up, get as many out as you possibly can. Cutting it up the side assures that you will get all the seeds out of the chili. And sometimes there's a spine in there, a dried up spine. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, that's you don't want that in there either. So you get out most of the seeds, and then just continue on until you finish getting all the seeds out of these chilies in this bag. And then I'll show you how to get it into the blender and turn it into beautiful luscious sauce for your pork. Okay, we've got all of our chilies stemmed and seeded, and now we're going to put them into our boiling water. Push them down in, make sure they're all submerged. Bring the chilies to a rolling boil. Turn off the heat and cover for 20 minutes. Time to get our chilies into the blender. Depending on the size of your blender, you may have to do 2 to 3 runs to blend all the chilies. In my blender, it takes like 1 full container and then maybe half of another container. But there's a total of 3 cups of water that you're going to use to blend up these chilies. Will give you the consistency that you're looking for. So do not use the chili water in the pot to blend your chilies, because it's nasty and bitter tasting. I don't know why people use it. It must just be an old tradition, but it definitely doesn't help the chilies taste delicious, in my opinion. So I'm starting here with 2 cups of water in this first full pitcher in my blender, and I'm going to blend this starting out on low and then get it turned up to high, and it's going to blend for about 2 to 3 minutes, literally blending and blending and blending and blending. But it's cutting up really fine the skins that are soft, but they're still present, so you want to try to get it as smooth as possible. So blend this for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will put the rest of the chilies in the blender and blend those up as well. So it's been about 3 minutes on blend, and this is the texture and consistency you're looking for. Transfer this batch to a pot, and get the rest of the chilies into the blender and your other 1 cup of water. So remember, it's a total of 3 cups of water for this 12-ounce bag of chilies. So however you incorporate that 3 cups of water, it doesn't matter, as long as you get it all blended together and then put into your pot when it's all blended. Once all your chilies are blended, transfer it to a stain-proof container, preferably a glass container, and store it in your refrigerator. I highly recommend that you make your chili sauce a day to 2 days before you actually make your tamales, and even before you make your pork. This will last in your refrigerator for up to a week. So knock it out ahead of time to save yourself a lot of time and frustration on the day that you make tamales. Once you get it transferred to your glass container, store it in your refrigerator, and then I'll show you how to combine this with your roasted pork to make the best tasting red chili pork tamale filling you've ever had. Time to season our chili sauce with 2 tablespoons of kosher salt, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, and 1 tablespoon of onion powder. Get that mixed in completely and store this in your refrigerator until we're ready to combine it with our delicious slow roasted pork. Let's make some pork. This is a 12-pound bone-in pork butt. It's got the bone in there. It's got lots of meat there and lots of fat on the top that we're going to score right now. We want to leave this fat cap on because this fat is going to melt during the cooking process, and it's just going to marinate the pork and keep it nice and moist and flavor it, and it's going to create a really, really nice broth inside that we're going to later use for our masa, and that's where more flavor is imparted. So what we're going to do is just going to take a nice sharp knife and we're going to score the pork on the top of the fat like this. That's what you want the top of your pork to look like, just like that. This is Sazononador that you can get from most Latin markets and or on Amazon. We're going to liberally season our pork butt here with this, and we're going to rub it in to the pork, massage it in nice all over. Time to get our pork in the roaster. Section 3 brown or white onions into quarters, leaving the little end on the onions to keep them intact during the roasting process. You're going to lay 6 of the quarters on the bottom as you see here, and then we're going to set our pork on top of that. Then place the other 6 remaining quarters of the onions around the corners and the sides wherever you can fit them. Next, we have 8 heads. Yes, I said 8 heads of fresh garlic cloves that you take and separate, leaving them in the husks, and go ahead and spread them around the sides of the roaster, just like so. Next, you're going to pour in 4 12-ounce Negra Modelos. Next, we add an entire bottle of liquid smoke, which is going to give our pork a nice smoky flavor. If you don't like a lot of smoke, you can reduce the amount of liquid smoke you put in, but definitely add at least a half a bottle. Set your roaster to 300 degrees, put on the lid, and set your timer for 6 hours. 6 hours later, this is what you have. Remove your pork butt from the roaster and strain the broth into a large saucepan, placing the broth in the refrigerator overnight, setting the roasted garlic, cloves, and the onions aside. With a pair of scissors, you're going to snip off the wooded end of each and every one of the garlic cloves and squeeze out your beautifully roasted garlic. Taking a fork, you're going to mash your garlic into a nice, smooth, creamy paste. Season it with a little bit of kosher salt, just a couple pinches. Stir that in and set your roasted garlic aside. Next, you're going to cut off the root end of the quartered onions, and now you can see why we left the root ends on, so that the onions stayed intact. We're going to finely chop these onions up really super fine and mix them with the roasted garlic, and that's going to go into our pork mixture and create amazing flavor. Introducing the star of the show, your 6-hour slow and low roasted smoked pork butt. That's when you know your pork butt is done, when the bone slides out clean. Next, we're going to break the pork up with our hands, as you see here, and then we're going to chop it into smaller pieces using a knife. It's time to saute our pork. You're going to need at least a 10-quart heavy-duty, high-sided pan to do this. We start by adding 3/4 of a pound of Parmesan manteca, which is pork lard. Do not substitute this for regular lard. It must be pork lard, as you see here. Parmesan makes a great one. We're going to melt down this 3/4 of a pound of manteca until it's completely melted, at which time we will add our pork to the pot and saute in this manteca for about 5 minutes, just coating the meat nicely, at which time we will add the other 3/4 of a pound and stir that in and melt it in. Once all the lard is melted and into the pork, saute it for about 5 to 10 minutes, stirring it constantly, just tossing it around. Then you're going to stir in 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. Once you get that mixed in and sauteed through, then we're going to add our roasted onions and roasted garlic mixture to the pork and stir that in. And then we're going to stir in our chili sauce and saute the pork with the chili sauce for a total of about 25 minutes. After you're finished sauteing your pork, this is what it should look like. Juicy, tender, and succulent. In the Latin cuisine world, this is known as a guisado. This is a pork guisado. For this batch of tamales, you're going to need 2 40-quart tamale pots that you can get at any Latino market. You'll also need 4 16-ounce packages of good quality corn husks. You're going to need to soak these husks overnight by putting them in one of the 40-quart tamale pots, filling that tamale pot full of hot water, as hot as your sink will get, and then you're going to weight them down using the tamale pot base and some kind of heavy-duty plates. It's the morning of your tamale making adventure. Start by removing your broth from the refrigerator and discarding this enormous fat pancake of fat that is sitting on top of your beautiful, rich broth. That's why we put it in the fridge overnight, to separate the fat from the actual broth. And then we'll warm up the broth and set it aside until we're ready to make our masa. Preparing your tamale pot for steaming. It's very important that you pre-measure the water that goes into the base of your tamale pot to steam the tamales. We're going to fill it up just below the fill line. Do not go above that fill line, or else it will be disastrous. Once you have the water filled to just below the fill line, you're going to take that water and pour it into another pot. Set that pot on the stove, and right before you put your tamales on to steam, you're going to heat that water up to boiling, and then I'll show you what to do with it then. It's time to prepare our tamale pot for loading the tamales. We're going to start by dropping in 2 quarters into the bottom of the tamale pot. And this is to let you know when the water is boiling. You'll hear the quarters begin to rattle. I'm going to place our base into the tamale pot. Next, we're going to take some of our wet tamale corn husks and tear them into smaller strips and place them down in the center of the tamale pot in the shape of a star, as you see here. This is to allow the tamales to have something to grip on when you are loading them into the pot. And then we're going to place an oven-safe bowl in the center of that star, and we're ready to start loading our tamales. Next, we're going to remove our soaking corn husks that have been soaking overnight. Take them out and drain as much water off as you can and set them aside on a towel and cover with another towel. This recipe calls for 12 to 15 pounds of masa for tortillas. I repeat, masa for tortillas. Do not buy prepared masa. That's what most people use in their tamales, and that's what makes our tamales so different, is that we make our own masa by starting with plain masa for tortillas. You want to buy your masa the morning that you're going to make your tamales. Don't buy it the day before. Buy it fresh. They make it every morning at many of the Latino markets. You'll need a KitchenAid stand-up mixer. This is an 8-quart commercial stand-up mixer. If you have the 5-quart, that'll work too, but you'll have to do your batches of masa in 3-pound increments. The ratio of lard to masa is 1 pound of lard per 3 pounds of masa. So I'm going to make 6 pounds of masa in my KitchenAid stand-up mixer here, and I'm going to be putting in 2 pounds of lard to the 6 pounds of masa. Make sure your lard is room temperature before adding it to your mixer. Whip your lard until it's smooth and creamy as you see here. Scrape down the sides to get the lard back into the bottom of the bowl. Start incorporating your 6 pounds of masa, one chunk at a time, as you see here. Once all your masa is in the mixer, mix on high until fully incorporated. Then you're going to stop the mixer and scrape down the sides again, and then mix again for another 2 to 3 minutes on high. Time to add our broth into the masa, and do this on low because otherwise it'll be all over your kitchen. So just in little increments, gradually mix in the broth. Once you get it all into the masa, then you can slowly increase the speed until you can get it on high, and then whip it on high for about another minute or two, at which point you'll add 2 tablespoons of kosher salt and mix that in for another 2 to 3 minutes. Stop the mixer and scrape down the sides again. Mix again on high for another 2 minutes. Reduce the mixer to low and now add your 6 tablespoons of New Mexico red chili powder. You can use mild, medium, or hot red chili powder depending on your taste. Once you get all the chili powder incorporated into the masa, you can increase the speed on the mixer to medium and then to high and mix for 1 minute before stopping the mixer and scraping down the sides again. And then finally mix one last time on high for 1 to 2 minutes. Place your masa in a bowl, cover with saran wrap, and set on your table where you will be making your tamales. Also, place your guisado, your pork guisado, the meat, in a dish as well. Set that on your table where you're going to be making your tamales, and we're going to get ready to start rolling, baby. All right, let's make some tamales. Here's the things that you're going to need. You can use one of these scrapers. I love this thing. Once you learn how to use it, it's really a time saver and helps to really create consistency of the spreading of the masa on your husk. You'll need a tablespoon size spoon, and you will need a fork. You will need a dry cloth, a dry, towel, some kind of thick, preferably, because we are going to pat dry any excessive moisture on the husks, and you want to keep your husks kind of under wrap like here to keep them from drying out. And so let's go ahead. You got your meat here, you got your masa ready. I'll show you how to put these babies together. Now, one of the most important things to remember when you're making tamales is there's 2 sides to the husk. There's a smooth side, and you can feel it with your fingernail, and there's a ribbed side. There's literally the silks, the ribs in the husk. You can hear it. Scratchy, right? And you'll be able to feel it with your fingernail. So scratch the husk, find the soft side, and that soft side is the side you want to put the masa on, because otherwise you put it on this side with the ribs and they tend to stick sometimes. So they slide out much easier when they're on the silky side. This is a good one to show you how to spread a tamale on. I'm only going to show you one, and then you can rewind and watch over and over again as many times as you have to see how it's done. So I set it down, pat it dry just a little bit because there's a little bit of moisture on there. Make sure that rib side is down, facing down. And then I will take two good size spoonfuls of the masa, one there, and then one closer to the front, right there. And then I take my scraper and I go side to side. First, I'll go left, like that. It's a good thing about the scrapers, you can get one of these tablecloths too. This is a thick, I don't know if it's rubber or some kind of a plastic tablecloth. Easy cleanup, it's clean. You can scoop the masa up off of this and continue to put it on your husks. Then turn your husk around and go the other way with the masa crossed. And there you go. That's a pretty even spread right there. The meat, you can make them as meaty or as chintzy as you want. But the one complaint I've always gotten from people about tamales is there's not enough meat in them. And there's too much masa. Heard that all my life. And I've experienced it. Not with my tamales, you won't. So you're going to put in a fair amount of meat. About like that. See that? I'll zoom in on that for you. So that's what your tamale should look like before you seal it up. So when you close it, you're going to take the left side and you're going to roll it over to the meat and then tuck it back in like so, and then just roll it over like that. Push it down to kind of adhere the masa to the husk, and you're going to fold it up towards the crease. So you fold the bottom toward the crease. Nice amount of meat in there, perfectly even, very symmetrical shaped tamale. There you go. So we're going to do that about 100, 120 more times. And then we're going to get them on the stove and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. This is the kind of uniformity that you want to see in your tamales pre-cooked when you've just filled them and rolled them. And I'm going to show you right now how to start your tamale TP inside of your pot before you cook them and put them on the stove. Okay, stacking your tamales. This is the tricky part. Some people just lay them down, but I like to do the TP method. So I start with 2 tamales that are pretty close in size and get them to lean on each other like so. So you lean them in like that. You just continue behind there. Other side. So you're going to put one there and lean that in, and this one here and lean that in. Okay, we're going to build our second layer now, and what you do now is you just use this part. That's why we put those 2 in there on the top, and you lean your first 2 tamales on top of that, and then we'll go around like this and create our second layer of tamales. So here's a trick that I use to help steam the tamales better, keep the steam in, and prevent them from getting wet from too much moisture, I just throw some husks, some bigger husks. Take some of your bigger husks and throw them around tamales like so. The top like that. I'm gonna take an old cloth, a kitchen cloth or a towel of some kind, kitchen towel, and you're gonna soak this towel in the hot water that you've prepared to pour into your pot that we pre-measured earlier. Take some tongs and dip it into your hot water. So here's our drenched towel with hot water. You can see the steam coming off of it. It's pretty hot, so we're just gonna drape that over the top, like so. So what I like to do is pour the hot water in portions, put it in a big Tupperware plastic pitcher, and pour it around the sides. And then a little bit on the top, just like so. And goes the second half of our boiling water. So we've got our tamale pot on the stove now. Turn your flame to high. And we're gonna cover with our lid. To further prevent steam from escaping and slowing down the cook time of our tamales, we're gonna put tin foil over the lid. So we've got our tamale pot wrapped with tin foil. Our flame is on high. We're waiting to hear the boil. You'll know that the pot is boiling when you hear the quarters start dancing around in the bottom of the pot. That's why we put those quarters down there. Once you hear that, you can start dancing too if you want. You hear that? That means your water is boiling, and you can reduce your heat now to a medium flame. Set your timer for 1 hour and 45 minutes, and we'll check our tamales at that time and see if they are done. Okay, it's been 1 hour and 45 minutes. We're gonna check our tamales. Be very careful. Steam comes out of here real quick, so see that? We'll loosen that up. Take this foil off. Keep it intact because you might possibly be putting it back on again. And when you take off this lid, I highly recommend you put on a glove. And you lift and slide this way, because if you lift it like this, you're gonna get burned all right here on your arm. So lift, and you're gonna take the lid away this way. See that? Got our hot towel there. All looks good. We're gonna set it on a plate like this, and we're gonna try and open it up and see what the masa looks like right now. The tamales need time to set, but what happens is as the tamales dry, the masa will harden and they'll be moist and tender. So really the cook time, you can't go wrong between 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. You see how shiny that is and glistening and moist? That's what you want to see. See that? See that? Ooh, that's hot. That's a tamale right there. I would say these are done. I'm gonna turn off the heat. So let's have a taste of this beauty. See that? How nice and succulent it is. It's tender and soft. There's nothing dry about these tamales. Nothing dry. And man, so juicy. The meat, succulent. I feel sorry for people that are still buying tamales on the streets. This right here, you make these for your family and you will be the rock star of your entire generation and maybe even generations to come and generations past. This is to die for. I really hope you try this. And let me give you one more word of advice. This is a lengthy process. I do this by myself sometimes. Usually I have my wife helping me, and it's huge. It cuts the time in half. However, this year we've had an unfortunate illness in the family, and she is a nurse, as many of you know, and she is advocating for that individual by the bedside, staying with them night and day, and just really being there for this person who is very dear to us. So I am on my own this year, and it is very time consuming. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to do this, try to do it over 3 days. One day you can make your chili. I need another bite. Hold on. One day make your chili, put it in the fridge. The next day, make your meat. And then put your meat in the fridge. And the following day, make your husks. So what I do is I make my chili on one day. I actually make my meat at nighttime. I put it in at nighttime. But if you don't have to work, I have to work. If you're home, if you can take 3 days out of your schedule, you can make your chili and your pork in the same day. And then put it in the fridge. And then that night, you're going to soak your hojas in water overnight. And in the morning, when you wake up, you go buy your masa. Don't buy your masa the day before. Buy it fresh. Go to the Latino market and buy the masa fresh that morning. And remember, it's masa para tortillas. Masa for tortillas. Don't get the masa prepared already. You can make your own masa with this recipe, this family recipe from Texas, from 4 generations past, maybe even 5. But yeah, this is dynamite. So remember, do it over the course of 3 days and it won't kill you. And if you have some help, that's good too. You'll definitely have help eating them, I'm sure. This is Vinyl Chef Steve. I want to thank you for joining me for this somewhat lengthy video. I tried to make it as short as possible. Hope you have a happy holidays, and if you do these tamales, they will make your holidays very, very special every year. It's a family tradition. You can get other people involved. You can have big parties and teach everybody how to do it. It's about family. You can get your kids involved when they're little, let them make a mess, and keep that tradition going for the rest of your family's lives. Thanks for joining me. This is Vinyl Chef Steve. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.